everyone, Alexa Donne here, and today I am going to be talking about what it is like to work with publicity at your publisher. Both things to expect, some do's, some don'ts, but also best practices and just etiquette on how to communicate and work with your publicist so that they like you. This is an area of traditional publishing that feels a bit opaque. I've learned a lot just by going through things, experiencing things, asking questions, and even so, my experience is limited to my experience, and hopefully kind of my ideas about best practices are helpful, but for all I know, somewhere out there is a dartboard with my face on it that publicists take aim at. I'm kidding. Hopefully, I do work in marketing, so some of these ideas and tips and really the things that I follow in my own best practices for myself are also based on what it feels like to be on the receiving end in a similar position. You're gonna find out one of my #1 pet peeves about business-related emails as it relates to publicity and marketing. So whether you're aspiring and just curious about how all of this works, or if you are in the game, you have an agent, you sold a book, you're debuting, you could be past debut and you are just like, how does it work? Why does it work this way? Best practices for working with publicity, I got you. Though I'm gonna start you off by being very, very confusing because publishing loves to be confusing and make no sense. Because the #1 thing to know up front is it's different at every publisher, kind of how publicity works or what is the domain of publicity versus marketing versus sometimes the sales team. There's also school and library team stuff. Though generally there are some universally agreed upon things that publicists do. Their job is to drum up publicity for your book. Marketing is a different arena, but that is to say you may find, oh, you're wondering about this, and at publisher A, your publicist would handle that, but at publisher C, it's a marketing contact and you're gonna get to that marketing contact through your editor. So that's actually the most important thing to know up front, no matter what. Your #1 advocate at your publisher is your editor. They are the most consistent person who is going to stay your contact for the length of your book contracts. You start with them and you're with them to the end, baby, and long before you are assigned to a publicist or have a reason to speak directly to a publicist, relay your concerns over there, you will have your editor on your side. In fact, at some publishers, your editor will remain your primary contact for the duration and you won't end up being assigned a publicist. So if this happens in your case, you would just deal with your editor for any of your questions about anything related to publicity, marketing, etc. And you won't have to actually worry too much about who does what at the publisher. Your editor will funnel those questions, those requests to the right parties. But otherwise, let's talk about timelines that you can expect for working with publicity when you might start talking to a publicist. Again, because publishing loves to be confusing, it does vary publisher to publisher, but generally, you will have your marketing and publicity launch like 6 months before your book comes out or a season before your book comes out. And now technically there are multiple launches. It's not like they've never heard of your book until 6 months before it comes out. They will have heard about your book at the acquisition meeting where they decided to buy it. There's also a launch like a year before your book comes out. That's the one where they're talking about cover concepts and it starts really feeling real. But there will be like an official one, and that's when they are gonna talk about the books that are for the next season and really firm up actually what they're gonna do with marketing, and they assign publicists to different authors. This is about the right time, 6 months before your book comes out, where it is totally okay for you to say to your agent or your editor directly, depending on your relationship, so, do I have a marketing plan? Can I see a marketing plan? And then you follow up until they hopefully send it. It really varies like how quickly you can get that marketing plan and if at all, but 6 months out, perfectly appropriate to start having that hope and that wish and ask that question. From there, actually being introduced to your publicist, again, timelines are going to vary depending on your publisher and the season, but I have found, at least with my current publisher, like 4 months out is when the introductory emails happen. Maybe it was 5 months out, but it wasn't like a explosion of like, yes, we're gonna talk about publicity like a lot right now. It was more like, hey, introducing you, great. things have really been ramping up as we get closer, because my book comes out in May and now we're in March. But when we were first introduced, which I think was late December, like it was just like a chill introduction thing. Another thing to know, because again, publishing loves to be confusing and essentially not gaslight authors, but make it harder for us. You can't always tell exactly what kind of priority you are for your publisher in terms of publicity and marketing based solely on time. So don't think it's 6 months out, you haven't been assigned a publicist, you haven't seen a marketing plan, you must not be important. Different publishers do different things. Some of them do really long lead time. They could even do this 9 months out, a year out. Some it's 6 months. Others, they're really not going to start that push until you're much closer to release, because they like to do their biggest push after the book is on sale. It really varies publisher to publisher. So I do encourage authors to deep breath. I know we're prone to panicking, and not make assumptions that you're not important because you haven't like been welcomed into the warm, loving embrace of all things publicity and marketing at a certain point. Like, don't set those aggressive time benchmarks for yourself and stress out about it. Also, a fun note about marketing plans. Marketing plans are mysterious things. You should both, like, they're important and they can be very reassuring, especially when you get one and you see what they're gonna do, but they're a work in progress. Marketing plans are organic things, I find, typically. So you may find they end up doing more than what is in your marketing plan. You may find out they do less or really different is what it'll often be. So they might not do that tactic because something changes, there's a moving target, but you find out they're doing that. So don't limit yourself to, oh, they're only gonna do what's on the marketing plan, because then you'll get a request from your publicist or from the marketing department that'll be like a pleasant surprise because it wasn't on the marketing plan. There's tons of things that they're not gonna firm up on there until they're real. So just kind of bear that in mind. So my biggest tip when it comes to kickstarting your relationship with publicity and your publicist as relates to the marketing plan is to have a kickoff call with them. Doesn't necessarily have to be like when you receive the marketing plan. I actually think it's nice to wait until you get a little bit closer to your on sale date so you get a sense of what they are working on, what you might want to do, and then have a call. I know it is very stressful to us author types, a phone call. I actually did a video call most recently because of this whole virtual situation, and I actually ended up really liking seeing the team on video. I got to see what my editor looked like. We've worked together for over a year and I didn't even know what she looked like. And it was equally nice meeting Publicity face to face. And what was nice about talking to each other, you can get a sense of each other. It's easier to ask a lot of questions. There's something about like the weightiness of putting them all in an email. You're like, am I asking too much? Am I overwhelming them? They may indeed be overwhelmed. But a phone call or video call is great because you can like more casually ask questions or ask questions in a more casual setting. I know that sounds odd because it's a phone call that doesn't feel casual to authors, but like business-wise, like that human to human contact, I found that it makes it easier to ask all your burning questions. And that is my recommendation. Prepare for a call with your publicist, your editor, and your agent. And I don't mean prepare, because that again is gonna set everyone hyperventilating, but jot down the questions you have. You have questions. You have questions, you have hopes, you have bucket list items. Write it all down. No question is ridiculous. Ask things like target placement, book club selection, book boxes, booktube tour, like that kind of like blue sky, like things that you're curious about. Sometimes that's jumping off of what you have seen in a marketing plan. Don't be afraid to ask. I asked my publicist because I had noticed that my publisher has in the past taken YA thrillers. They start them on NetGalley in the teen section, and then closer to release, they also put it in the mysteries and thrillers section, which is mostly adult, for like cross-pollination. And I just brought that up on the call, and my publicist was like, you're right, we do that. It's a great strategy. I'll check and see about the schedule for the Ivies. It doesn't hurt to ask. Ultimately, your relationship should be in many ways collaborative. It's their job to promote you. They take you and they take your book and they think of ways to make you sound interesting to people. That's kind of publicity in a nutshell. not to put pressure on you that it's like, it's what you bring to the table, but meaning you are the author. It's your book. You know your book and you know you better than anyone else. So come to the table, questions, ideas. It's good to have that collaborative conversation. This said, and this is relevant as we transition into how best to communicate with your publicist so that you all like each other. There is a very delicate line between being invested and interested and bringing a lot to the table and being a little too intense, pushy, and demanding. And I know that line is terrifying. We're all like, oh God, it's me. And this is where you just need to be thoughtful about volume. And I don't mean like of your voice, so I mean don't yell, but volume of ideas, volume of requests, communication channels. Again, why a phone call is great, because it removes some of that pressure of a formal email, and just being thoughtful about letting them drive the car. Like, you're in the passenger seat. You want to be a little bit of a backseat driver is what I mean to say. Like, they are asking you to assist them in navigation, but they are driving the car. So meaning, take the temperature of kind of the relationship, how it's feeling, and just be careful about being too pushy, too demanding. And you just have to be wary, because there are often uneven power dynamics. There are situations where authors can be really awful to their publicists. They can really abuse them. Publicists often don't get thanked enough. They have a lot of work dumped on them. And that's important to say. I should have said it up front. Publicists have a lot on their plate. I find that it's best to always approach your publicist and publicity with as much grace and good faith as humanly possible, meaning know that they have to juggle a ton of work, a ton of projects. They don't just work on your book. They could be working on 20 books at any given time. It's a lot. It's a million different things to keep track of. It's a lot of bandwidth. And I mean, deadline pressure, like the book's coming out. There's just always something going on. And while you are a priority, you're rarely the only priority, if that makes sense. And so it's just, everyone should be nice to each other. Everyone should be kind and patient. And it's gonna make your relationship so much better. So be careful coming off as demanding. That said, women and other marginalized individuals, always remember, go into any given situation with the confidence of a mediocre white man. That's what you're aiming for, essentially. Because it's really dangerous, because, you know, I think we already check ourselves. I can only speak as a woman, of course, that we're being too assertive, we're being too demanding. So I actually think we're used to this tightrope walk, so we're fine. So yeah. So before I really dive into just tips and best practices for communication, I want to share some things that might not be totally obvious, but are important for you to know in terms of working with your publisher, working with publicity. Never, ever, ever do a cover reveal or post an excerpt. That includes like reading it out loud on a YouTube video, definitely posting it anywhere like Twitter or Wattpad or etc. You're essentially publishing any part of your book without the express permission of your publisher. The latter, the excerpt part, can actually violate the terms of your contract. So you have to be very careful with that. Publishers can actually assert rights on that, like in your favor. They can sell excerpts from your book for publication. So if it's published in a magazine, they can sell that, and that would go toward your advance. I mean, it's a paltry amount, but you know what I mean. And your cover, you never want to piss off publicity, marketing, sales, etc. because you posted the wrong cover or you messed up the timing. Just always, this is a case where it is best to ask for permission rather than beg for forgiveness. Now there's tons of other things where I would actually encourage you to take initiative, and it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission, but that's for lower stakes things like scheduling a blog interview for yourself or attending a virtual panel or conference. Those are the kind of things where they're 99% of the time only going to be happy that you took the initiative to do something on your own and informed them about it after the fact. But cover reveals, posting excerpts, are on the side of caution. Next, briefly, your publicist is going to be that magical contact for you when it comes to ARCs, just as an FYI. Once we are back in the era of physical ARCs, I mean, if we get back to the era of physical art, some publishers are phasing them out entirely. That would be the person who can always send an ARC out to someone if you need them to. You will receive copies yourself as an author, but your publicist is that go-to contact for all things ARC related, including e-ARC giveaways. Just kind of ask them if you know that you want to do one. Hey, could I do a giveaway for 5 e-ARC widgets? So those are basically pre-approval links for NetGalley. Your publicist is the one who would coordinate all of that with you. Like the way I've experienced it is I run my giveaway and then I send the emails to my publicist and she takes care of setting up those NetGalley widgets. That's also what you can go to your publicist for if you want to send, for example, blurb copies to people. If you're already in ARC form, you would work with your publicist on that. Before that, you would work with your editor. Oh, and just like the last kind of fun fact, like things all authors know and laugh about, I'm gonna call this Schroedinger's author questionnaire. So after you get a book deal and you sign with a publisher, they're gonna send you this author questionnaire. It's this really intense document. They're very notorious that it asks you anything and everything about yourself. It's your biographical details, where you went to college, hometowns, any publications that might find interest in you and your book, a little pitch for your book, comps for your books. It's overwhelming. I kind of enjoyed filling it out. I was gonna say no one enjoys filling it out. It is tedious, and the joke about it is inevitably you need to fill it out. You should fill it out and you should fill it out promptly, but inevitably you will end up finding you're just not sure that anyone reads it, but you're not sure, like you look at your marketing plan or what the publicist and marketing teams end up doing and you're like, it's probably because they read my questionnaire and they knew things about me, but then you're gonna end up repeating information from it. So just FYI, fill it out, but like don't get offended. You end up repeating information from it because like I'm just not sure how widely it gets passed around, so just FYI. Now onto my pro tips and best practices for communication with your publicist. These are all about clear and friendly business communication, more or less. Tips for having a good relationship and being an author that they enjoy working with. Have a clear subject line. Put your title in the subject line, and like as one does with subject lines, an idea of what the email is about. But like think about your Gmail inbox and how emails thread. It shouldn't just always be Ivy's updates. She says guilty of titling multiple emails with her editor that, or Ivy's draft, and they all blur together. But I find with publicity and marketing in particular, it's great to have specific subject lines, but also put your book title at the front so they know who you are. My next tip is to be very gracious and understanding and thoughtful when it comes to timelines, deadlines, follow-ups. If there's something that you would like them to do or a question that you have, don't have it always be a 3-alarm fire where you roll into your publicist's inbox and oh gosh, and also be wary of timing. Like West Coast person, I understand the need to send a midnight email. Have I done it? Yes. But still, whenever possible, try to send emails at normal times of the day. It's okay to find a pocket of time to write something. Send it the next day. Like, we're all working around busy schedules, but like, don't send that 3-alarm midnight email that's like, I need this done by tomorrow. Like, don't cause undue stress is what I mean. If there is an actual fire drill, of course you're gonna rally the team, but don't make everything a fire drill, if that makes sense. And just the art of the friendly follow-up. Hey, just checking in to see where we are with this. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Be gracious. You know, also let go in yourself. Like if something's not a hard deadline, deep breaths, let it go. If something takes a little bit more time, then maybe you would bearing in mind, again, publicists have a ton on their plate. They're working with a ton of different people and they're always juggling projects and priorities. And yes, a little grace goes a long way. Now I can tell you about that #1 pet peeve of mine, and that is where this comes from and why I'm very careful with how I communicate with people. I loathe the follow-up you get sometimes from the person who basically tells you how to do your job because the passive-aggressive assumption is that you are incompetent and you don't know how to do your job. It's basically this passive-aggressive way of saying, I should be your priority, why haven't you done this yet? When you follow up and say, please take care of this, follow up with X person by Y. I feel like that's not gonna come up a ton in book publicity, though I guess you never know, but I have been on the receiving ends of those sorts of emails in marketing. And here's the thing, the professional person you are corresponding with is never going to be able to tell you, I am juggling 100 different things with varying degrees of priority. Fact is, your thing is less important than this other thing, but I can't tell you that because that would be unprofessional. So yeah, just deep breaths, be nice when you follow up, and don't tell people how to do their jobs. My next pro tip, this is again, just business communication. Be circumspect when it comes to the CC, the agent/editor copy. Now you might be in a situation where your agent likes to be copied on everything and so it doesn't even matter because you will copy them on everything no matter what. You might also find as you are introduced to your publicity contact that that is also the way your editor rolls, that they are always copied on everything, the publicist does it automatically, etc. But you're gonna also have plenty of situations where you develop a more one-on-one relationship with your publicist and you're gonna get into the passive-aggressive copy situation, i.e., the thing you shouldn't do, which is passive-aggressively copy on your editor or your agent if you are following up and that you feel that they're not doing their job, etc. That doesn't mean never copy in your editor or your agent. If there's a situation where you're like, my editor should totally be copied in on that, just copy them in and say, hey, adding editor to this chain. It's fine when it's a low stakes situation, but when it's a higher stakes situation, just don't put your publicist on blast by passive aggressively copying in, essentially, not literally their boss. The editor is not their boss, but there's definitely a power differential, and depending on the editor, it actually could be their boss. That actually does vary depending on publisher, so just FYI. So this next pro tip is 100% a cell phone. And it kind of speaks to that being pushy, demanding piece, which can also just be boiled down to being really intense. And so the tip is to not overwhelm your publicist too much. If you are very extra when it comes to marketing, publicity, your book, ideas, etc., just be circumspect. Don't send them epic 1,000-word emails with 1,000,000 bullet points and every single idea you've ever had about marketing. Break that up. Have that call I mentioned so that you can run through things talking so it's not this overwhelming email. But also just be thoughtful about the time and place for when you are approaching your publicist with things. Timing actually comes into this as well. I already mentioned, midnight emails, but also be thoughtful about timing and schedules. So for example, 6 months out from your book's release really isn't the time to send the publicist every single idea you've ever had about marketing, because a bunch of it's just not going to be relevant, because honestly, they're focusing on whatever's releasing next month, not your book, and but don't overwhelm them too early, basically. I mean, don't overwhelm them late either. But be thoughtful about when it is actually the best time to get into the weeds on all the marketing and publicity stuff. Again, you're narrowing down what the email is about and you're putting it in the subject line. It's okay to cover more than one thing in an email. I cannot be stopped from doing that, because the solution isn't to send them 4 different emails in the span of 48 hours either about 4 different things, because basically you don't want situations where there's too many balls up in the air, juggling too many things, and inevitably something gets lost or overlooked, and both things can do that. Too many emails in a short period of time, spamming them essentially, but also one mega email that just has 1,000,000 things in it. So just be thoughtful. And I know sometimes you are just raring to go and you want to get it down. This is me, it's a cell phone, but just deep breaths and take it one thing or just a few things at a time. And then just another note with timing, be aware of kind of vacation scheduling as well. So to give you a personal example, I was introduced to my publicist in like late December, and I knew that even though I really wanted to email on January 2nd, I'd been stewing in a positive way about getting excited for it being launch year for the Ivies. I was so excited, and I waited a week. I waited a week after we got back from the holidays because I'm nice. Just like, think about the difference in like, yours is one of many emails that like hits them in the face the day they get back to the office, virtual or otherwise, after an extended period. You know they're gonna have hundreds of emails. Don't contribute to that. Instead, be one of the dozens of emails, because people get so many emails, that comes on a Tuesday a week later. Just always think about how you might be hitting someone at any given time in terms of your communication and what you're asking for. The next is kind of a no-brainer, but still worth saying. When your publicist asks you to do something, do it. Do it by the deadline. Do it promptly is better, but I'm very bad at that. Do it by the deadline. The good thing is that follow-ups go both ways, and hopefully your publicist sends you an equally nice, polite, and forgiving nudge before something is due. So just, yeah, do the things they ask you to do. That said, also important to establish boundaries early on. If there are things you aren't comfortable doing, and in fairness, some of this just comes with experience. So when it came to the IVs and I was having first conversations with my publicist, though I actually got reassigned a publicist, my initial publicist did leave, so I had to do the whole introductory thing twice, but she asked, are there certain things that you just don't really want to do in terms of promoting this book? And I won't tell you what it was, but I had one hardline thing that I knew bandwidth-wise wasn't gonna work, especially alongside drafting and editing another book. And it's just important for them to know so that they're not coming to you with requests that just aren't gonna work for your life, for your schedule, for your mental health, whatever it is. It's okay to establish boundaries, but when you do agree to do things, basic things that your publicist asks you to do them on time. The next tip is don't be afraid to loop your publicist in on things. If you get a request for an event or an interview, forward that to your publicist, and it can be a conversation of, do you think I should do this? Would you handle communication for this? In many cases, it might be more appropriate for you to handle something, and you do have to be judicious. As I mentioned, like if you get an interview request for a vlog, or if you're invited to do a virtual panel, you don't have to always run that by your publicist. To a certain degree, you can have plenty of agency and initiative in your own marketing, publicity, and kind of platform initiatives. But don't be afraid when you get something that comes your way that you're not sure about, or that it just feels like it would probably be their domain, to send it along to them. Lastly, I want to leave you with my overall philosophy when it comes to working with your publisher. This is true either way, but specific to working with publicity and marketing. Be an asset. Make yourself an asset. Now we have to be careful of those murky lines of authors being asked to do too much, authors as brands, publishers overly relying on authors doing a lot. But that said, publicists love an author who brings something to the table. As I already mentioned, you know your book better than everyone. You are yourself, and it is their job to promote both you and your book. So if you have something, a cool idea or something that you know that you can do and bring to the table, bring it. Also, a side note related to that, don't be insulted if they ask you to do your own cover reveal. It's actually now kind of conventional wisdom that 90% of the time an author and their own platform is actually the best way to do a cover reveal. Come to the table with that. If you are really good on a specific platform, offer to do your cover reveal. If you have contacts and people you know who you think would be excited to promote your book, pass on that information to them. If there are specific skills that you have, things that you know that you like to do, tell them. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to offer ideas. Just remember, don't be too intense. I'm just pointing at myself. It's just me. I can be so intense. Be an asset in combination. The whole thing about getting your publicist to like you, it's cheeky and it's funny. It's also semi-literal, but essentially, be someone that people like working with. That's gonna help you in publishing, period. It doesn't mean don't be yourself. It doesn't mean don't be assertive. It doesn't mean don't speak up when things are bullshit. Though happily, that is also what your agent is there to help facilitate, but meaning be thoughtful, communicative, meet your deadlines, and show thanks and appreciation. People like working with people who are nice to work with. So thank your publicist. Thank them in your acknowledgements. When you do publishing day gifts, when you're thanking your team, thank your publicist. Always be thoughtful with your email communication, what you bring to the table, and essentially always bear in mind, always try to be the person who brightens their day rather than dampens it. I know this all sounds really Pollyanna, but the gist of it basically is just be kind and professional toward your publicist and your editor and your agent and so on and so on and so on. I hope I helped answer some questions that you may have had about working with a publicist, some best practices, things that have helped me. Seriously, half of it is just me tempering my own intensity so that they don't run away screaming. Hopefully I do. Hopefully I do well. I guess know yourself and then just be very good at emails, at business communication. Let me know down below in the comments any questions that you have about this, or if you are an author and you've worked with publicists. Heck, some of you might be publicists. So if you're a publicist, what are the little things that authors can do to make your day better, your job easier, etc.? Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I will make more videos about publishing, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and happy writing.